Okay, I'll call the Board of Adjustment to order. First up would be Craig Olson.
So this is a continuation of a hearing that began last month, but I'll read the notice again. Please take note that an application was received from the following person for a variance of setback requirements. This is Craig Olson in Township 103, Houston County, and he's looking for a variance of 12 feet from the western property line to meet the 50-foot setback requirements to build a shed. Craig has a death in the family, so he's not able to be here tonight. But we have heard and got documents from him since he was last in here. If you recall, last month the issue was there was disagreement over the exact location of the property line from which we're measuring the variance. Yesterday, Mr. Olson and his neighbor recorded deeds with the county, which definitively describe where that line is. In addition, I've received correspondence from the neighbor saying that he agrees with the proposal with the two caveats that were provided to you in the staff report. Those are that survey markers be placed along the line so we have a definitive way to measure where the setback comes from. And the survey that was provided in your packet shows that there's there's two survey markers placed 200 feet apart along that line, so we would be able to stretch a line between those to do that measurement. And then secondly, that water diversion system, so basically gutters are installed on the new building on the west line to prevent runoff from going down onto that existing shed. If you recall, there was a shed below the dike, so the neighbor was worried that water would adversely affect that, and this is a solution they came up with to remedy that. The applicant is near a phone. If we have any questions he should need to weigh in on, I told him I would give him a call. He's very hopeful that this will go through tonight, but if you have any other questions, perhaps I may know I've been in contact with him on several occasions since last
So
week.
where did the actual line end up at?
Well, if we look at the survey that came through,
On the original one, wasn't it?
yeah. So in your packet there, I'll kind of show this on the screen as well. The survey on, I believe, page 3, in the middle of this top row here is where the area of question is. What had happened prior to the new quit claiming of deeds was that the line between Mr. Craig Olson and Jacob Olson was just a straight line. And if you can see on this new survey, it kind of jags to the west at the point at which, if you're looking at the screen, I guess I can use my cursor. The old lines are here, these black lines, they're just straight lines. And these are two different parcel layers, but for all intents and purposes, the old line was just this straight line. This new line comes along this old straight line, and then it jags to the west, and then it continues up this way, and then it does a lot of kind of wobbles as it goes up the hill. But for our purposes, we're concerned about where the line is right here near where the shed's being built. It really kind of just mimics the old fence is how it was done. That's why it took some time for the surveyor to mark that out.
All the neighbors are okay with it?
The only opposition we had heard, or even comments we received, were from Mr. Jacob Olson. He has provided an email in which he says he's okay with it, and he's also quit claimed property over to move this line with Craig, so he's no longer, I guess he supports its passage is what I should say.
So they both agree on it,
Yes.
and they documented their agreement.
Insofar as I've received an email from the neighbor saying that he supports it with those two conditions.
Yep. Yeah, it looked like they've done the quick claim and everything, so, I mean, and they're following up with the documentation, so there won't be questions in the future.
Yeah, and an interesting thing that was learned by myself during this process is that we don't actually record surveys. The recorder's office is hesitant to do that. They prefer the quitclaim deeds in this case, and for the exact reason that was highlighted last month, and that if someone has a survey done, there's no telling that the neighbors agree with that survey. And that's kind of the problem we found ourselves in last month.
You have any questions, Tim?
No.
Larry, you have any questions?
No, I think it's pretty.
Anybody in the crowd have any questions on this matter? Okay, I guess you can do the findings.
The Houston County zoning ordinance establishes the following criteria for granting variances. Area variance standards, practical difficulties. Number one, is there a substantial variation in relation to the requirements? In this case, the petitioner is seeking a 24% reduction from the standard. That's not out of line with other variances that the county has granted. Will the variance have a negative effect on governmental services? Staff analysis in this case is that there will be no effect on governmental services. Will the variance affect a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood, or will there be a substantial detriment to neighboring properties? In this case, a neighbor identified a potential negative effect that would have occurred on his property, but it's been remedied by the proposed conditions on this variance, being that the line is marked on the ground and that the runoff from the building is abated. Can the practical difficulty be alleviated by a feasible method other than a variance? Staff analysis in this case is that the site is within a narrow draw with steep slopes. The center of the draw is a drainage ditch, so there's really no other option for this building other than a top ditch dike. How did the practical difficulty occur? Did the landowner create the variance? The staff analysis in this case is the presence of the embankment provides a flat surface on which to build. The embankment was constructed approximately 60 years ago and was presumably located according to the limitations and requirements of the natural features present at the site. Thus, the natural features dictate the need for the variance. And in light of all the above factors, will granting the variance serve the interest of justice? In this case, staff analysis is yes, that it will. Should the Board of Adjustment grant the variance, staff recommends the following conditions: that prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, survey marker or other indicator of surveyed property line must be installed so as to provide a line from which to measure. The survey indicates that has occurred, as does the applicant, but we would verify that before we actually issue the permit. And then secondly, that any structure erected on the dike must incorporate gutters on the west side to prevent roof damage or roof drainage from flowing into existing shed on adjacent property owners' property to the west. This is something that the applicant, Craig Olson, has agreed to do, so I don't see an issue with that requirement as well.
Any more questions?
None here.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to either grant the variance or deny it.
I'll make a motion to grant the variance.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
You can agree to variance?
I don't think so. I think we're
No.
Okay,
We're good, right?
yep, all right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Variance is granted.
Minutes before we want to start the next one.
Yeah.
do a better job of making people come up to talk, because it's really hard for Holly to put together the minutes when they aren't picked up on the mic and we don't know who's talking. I'll say something before we start, but if we have to stop and ask people to, we should do that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, what we're gonna do is we'll have the applicant at one of these tables. He could remain up the entire time if he wishes to, or he could go back down after he's done. And then the other table, should he remain up, would be for public comment. And mainly it's public comment that tends to come from just the chairs, and we want to bring it up to the front.
Any time limit?
What's that?
Any time limit on the public comment?
That's up to you.
You,
Well, should we put out a 3 minute?
Yeah.
Do we have to make a motion of that, or can we?
I think you
I don't
just
think you need a
announced,
motion, no, I think
I
you
think you just
turn
announced
that.
it.
Timekeeping.
I can do it.
All right, gotta be able to do the timekeeping.
4, I don't care.
What do you guys think?
3? All right.
3, okay with you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
If you want to approve the minutes from last month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of last month's.
I'll second you guys right away.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion approved. Minutes are approved.
Hmm?
He's gonna come in for this?
He disbanded them.
Oh, I didn't know, like, on the scale.
Oh, I don't know. I thought maybe they. come from the east, you probably should be in the cellar, because it's probably gonna get a storm.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's right. Okay, I'll call the next hearing. Cody Stutton, will you please come up here? All right, Aaron?
We did notice, please take notice that an application was received from the following person for a variance of setback requirements. This is Cody Stutton. He's looking for a variance within Houston Township of 2,280 feet to meet the required half-mile setback from an existing, to expand an existing feedlot from a corporate limit, a variance of 2,280 feet to meet the required half-mile setback to expand a feedlot from a platted subdivision, a variance of 1,650 feet to meet the required half-mile setback for an existing feedlot from a public park. Additionally, he is in need of a variance to meet the quarter-mile setback from an existing dwelling located within the city limits of the city of Houston. A hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Justice Center basement, City of Caledonia, Minnesota 55921 at 6:45 on Thursday, September 29th, 2016. This was advertised on September 14th. So as I stated in the notice, multiple variances are being sought here for an increase in animal units on an existing feedlot from 50 animal units up to 200 animal units. The petitioner is initially looking to bring on 140 animal units, but wants the potential to bring on an additional 60 in the future. The setbacks range from a quarter mile to a half mile. The petitioner recently purchased property at the intersection of State 16 and State 76. The property consists of approximately 18 acres. The city of Houston borders the property to the west. There's a Minnesota statute that talks about when a feedlot that hasn't been used, how much time has to lapse before it would have to re-permit as a new feedlot. That time period is 5 years. The proposed site was registered in January of 2013 for 50.3 animal units. That 2013 registration indicated that no animals were kept on site, but that animals had been on site in 2011. The applicant recently updated that registration for the purpose of changing the ownership of the feedlot. Myself, I'm the one who requested that he use a registration update to do that. That request was in error. He should have used a change of ownership form. I think his intent, though, was simply to change the ownership of the feedlot and not to update the animal units. At least that's the way that I perceive that exchange between the two of us. And that's supported by the fact that the applicant was in touch with the zoning office prior to the purchase of the lot to inquire about how many animal units the site was registered for. So for the purposes of this analysis, the staff report that I provided to you, we are using December 31st, 2011 as the most recent time that animals were on site. So therefore, should animals be returned on site within a 5-year period before December 31st of this year, the site would be allowed to continue with the current registration. Since your initial packets were mailed out to you, the petitioner has also submitted a good neighbor plan addressing the control of odor, manure application, and roadway weight registration restrictions. That's in the packet of information you got tonight, and perhaps we'll touch on that later on when we speak with the applicant. The Feedlot Advisory Committee viewed this site on September 26th, and their report is also included. And I guess I will touch on that at this point. So as I said, the Feedlot Advisory Committee conducted an on-site review of the facility on September 26th. The The site is currently registered for 50.3 animal units. The applicant has proposed an increase to 200 and is seeking multiple setback variances to do so. The Feedlot Advisory Committee compiled several observations and several recommendations for the Board of Adjustment to consider and to aid you in your decision tonight. The observations include, and these I should state that these are not a consensus of the Feedlot Advisory Committee, these are an aggregated list of all observations put forth during that on-site inspection. But a lot of variances are being requested. That 200 animal units might be too high, that the feedlot existed here first, but the city of Houston has also been here for some time, that there is potential for issues with smell, and that other land further away would be more suitable. The recommendations that they offered included defer to soil and water recommendations regarding runoff controls, require stocking levels that result in compliant min farm scores, prohibit expansion beyond existing fence line on the west side of the yard, prohibit future changes in animal species, allow future changes in animal species, limit to 50 animal units, and require that increases be done incrementally.
Is that everything, Eric?
Additionally, the county has requested that the petitioner apply for an interim permit. This is different than the interim permits that you may be familiar with from our zoning ordinance. This is a permit that exists within the feedlot rules, and it's used for sites where there is a pollution problem, and that's not the case here, or sites where there's the potential for a pollution problem. That is the case here, and really the potential is the result of the proximity to the floodplain. And as we go through this further, we'll see that the floodplain, as it currently exists, actually touches the site in some areas. After the application for the interim permit is received, the county could issue a permit in conjunction with the Board of Adjustment decision, and doing it in that manner would allow for the animal units allowed by the Board of Adjustment and the animal units allowed under an interim permit to match up, which would be the ideal situation. Additionally, since your packets were provided to you, new information is coming from the DNR indicating that there are questions regarding interior drainage areas within Zone X. This is a Zone X flood zone. Zone X means that it's an area protected by dike or levee from a 100-year event. The feedlot rules do not consider Zone X to be part of the floodplain. Any expansion is prohibited within the floodplain. The old maps that we're using to determine Zone X are a bit ambiguous, so it's difficult to say precisely where Zone X begins and Zone AE, that's the other zone that's present in the area. Zone AE is within the 100-year floodplain, where one starts and the other begins. The DNR is looking further into this. I should also say that all these zones are being updated currently, and as I look at the preliminary maps that are in place now, it appears to me that the entire parcel is slated to be removed from Zone AE, and the whole parcel will be Zone X. However, the DNR has said that there may be a, how do they put that? Areas of interior drainage within that Zone X, and they are unsure as to whether those should be considered floodplain or not, and they're doing additional research on this as we speak. For these reasons, the county is recommending that the board table this matter to allow time for the DNR to do that necessary research regarding the floodplain, and allow time for the applicant to submit his application for the interim permit. I'll continue, I guess I state that here because that's where I'm addressing the new information, but I think it would still be useful to go through much of the information that we have tonight so that we have much of the work done, perhaps if you do choose to table it, we do come back. So some applicable language from the zoning ordinance that applies to this situation. Section 0110.3316, general feedlot location and setback standards. Feedlot setback from urban development, new feedlots, and the expansion of existing feedlots located within 1/2 mile of a school, church, platted subdivision, public park, or incorporated city limit shall be reviewed as a site-specific variance. Sub 5 of the same section, feedback setback from a residential dwelling, new feedlots and the expansion of existing feedlots located within 1/4 mile of dwellings other than the owner or operators or their family members' dwelling may be viewed as a site-specific variance. I should also say that many of these that apply here, we have a park, we have a platted subdivision, and we have corporate city limits, and we also have a residence. I believe all of these features, if they were in the county and not the city, would have been required to pursue a variance to locate this close to a feedlot. Because there's different zoning jurisdictions at play here, that requirement isn't in place. But I think that's at a minimum worth stating that if it were in the county, it would have been, there would have had to been reciprocal variances sought. Houston Township and the City of Houston were notified of this application, as were the 10 nearest property owners. 2 inquiries were received. 1 individual contacted the office to express opposition. Since your packets were provided, the Houston Township has expressed support for this application, and the City of Houston has expressed opposition to this application. The characteristics of the site, it's located adjacent to the City of Houston. A cornfield, approximately 366 feet in width, lies between the open lot or the proposed open lots and the adjacent outbuildings and a subdivision on the eastern edge of the City of Houston. Within that subdivision, a dwelling was constructed in the lot nearest the feedlots in 2015. Many of the other lots currently remain vacant. We sort of touched on the floodplain here. I guess since you were provided with your staff reports, we've got additional information. I'll touch on that again. The firm map was included in your packets. You can kind of see the kind of gerrymandered looking shapes that indicate where Zone X is and where Zone AE is. The DNR has provided clarity regarding those current maps, and that clarity is that the western portion of the northern lot and the building extending to the floodplain. So if we look here on the map, where that area would be, it's clipping right along here. And in your package here, we would have, if you flip with me to near the back, it's that page, looks like this. It says number 2 on the bottom of it. You can see the yellow contour line there. It's a 680-foot contour line, and it's clipping. You see it clips part of that cemented yard and part of that building. That is the area that the DNR has indicated that under the current maps they believe to be in the Zone AE. Once that's verified through them, that would mean that expansion would not be able to take place in that portion of that lot or that building. There would be some options perhaps for the applicants if indeed that he believed that contour line is not an accurate reflection of how the land lies. However, based on the pending updating of our flood maps, where this is all slated to come out, it may be unnecessary to go through a process of reviewing that if we're looking at updating the maps to remove this area from the floodplain in the very near future. The stocking density. So we have two different lots here that are being proposed, and these areas I'm showing here are what was used to produce your staff report, but actually they've been changed a bit. As I understand it now, this grass area on the eastern side here would no longer be part of the proposed lot. I think I have a new overlay to. Well, maybe I do not have a new overlay, but I believe, and I guess I confirm with Cody here, that it would be this area that's indicated in blue here, and it would expand over to this concreted area in between the two barns and the bunker. That would now be lot one. It wouldn't expand out into this grass area, and it wouldn't expand into this grass area, and it wouldn't be on this concrete area down here. So the new area that's, let's make sure I have my areas right. This new area in conjunction with the barn is an area roughly 6,000 square feet, and there's an additional approximately 4,000 feet of area within that barn that affords, at 140 head in that lot, 70 square foot per head. And we discussed lot 2. The calculation provided in your initial staff report would no longer be valid, either because of the need to update things based on where that floodplain potentially would lie. Regarding management, the petitioner has communicated a plan calling for scraping and land applying the manure. He's indicated that he would be doing this weekly, weather permitting. He stated that manure will be spread on land owned and leased by his uncle, which is approximately 2,500 acres, and he is not planning on any manure storage on site. Should land not be accessible due to weather conditions, the petitioner would mound manure within the feedlots until such time that it could be applied. The mounding of manure within an animal containment area is not considered manure storage. The odor section provided here, these are again based on the initial application lot area sizes and numbers. But the state has offered a tool to assess the odor at various distances that emanates from a feedlot. It's called the offset tool. Based on this tool, the nearest neighbor would be annoyance-free from this feedlot 95% of the time. The way this is done is it averages emissions of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia to compute the figure. And just for some perspective, some counties do have requirements for offset built into their ordinances. Fillmore County requires an offset rating of 99% at all corporate limits. But it should be said that many factors influence this: wind direction, weather, and management. So it's not necessarily a perfect indicator, but it's some form of indication nonetheless. Open lot discharge. So based on the initial proposed lots, the first lot would have a hard time perhaps with open lot discharge due to the fact that the way that the state requires us to assess discharge is that the end of treatment is at the property line. So as I initially had that lot proposed, it would go right up to the property line, so there would essentially be zero treatment of discharge. We did a site visit with soil and water folks, they ran some numbers to compute discharge, and I have an overlay for that. Okay, these are those overlays, and these are the buffers that approximate what soil and water recommended. If this were to be done, you would end up having 50 animals in one lot and 50 animals in another lot, are the assumptions they made. They made a lot of other assumptions about other water discharging into the lot, so water coming off these roofs. They're not including that. They're making assumptions that there would be gutters installed. But if you had no upslope water draining through these, and this is a fairly flat area, and you had water redirected off these roofs to not run through these lots, and then you had buffers of these approximate sizes, all treating runoff before you hit the end of the property line, you would be able to operate the system and achieve a compliant, it's called a min-farm model score, a min-farm score that assesses the runoff. Wells, expansion wouldn't be allowed within 100 feet of a well. The existing well on the site is right here, and it's more than 100 feet. I believe it's 140 feet from this well to the nearest proposed feedlot facility. At this point, I guess I would direct additional questions to either myself or the applicant.
Cody, do you have anything to add to all this?
No, I think he explained it pretty good.
You're gonna haul the manure every 7 days, I think I read in here.
Well, I agreed to scraping. I don't know about hauling it, but I'll scrape it for sure every 7 days.
And what size cattle do you plan on putting in here?
300 pounders right away. Then I want to raise them to 500, and there'll be 140 head right away. But then when they get to 500, I was going to sell off 40, so there's more room to be able to manage the manure and everything, keep them bedded down.
You guys have any questions, Tim?
No, I guess I'm pretty well.
All right.
Not at this point.
Anybody else would like to speak to this variance?
Good evening. I'm Jed Hommel. I am the attorney for the City of Houston, and I'm on behalf of the City of Houston. I've been instructed to come here and put forth an opposition to the variance application. I do have some material to provide to you here. If you could just give one to each of them, please. And I'm just going to pretty much go through in oral format what's in this written objection. Here, here's a copy for you.
Oh, I see, okay, whole folder.
I'll just summarize a few of the reasons why the City of Houston opposes. First of all, the City of Houston, of course, supports agriculture. This is not against Cody himself. This would be against anybody and anybody going into the property as a variance sticks with the land. However, we're requesting that the variance be denied. The main reason is it does not comply with the Houston County's comprehensive plan. In order to grant a variance, at the very least, it's got to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And there's about 4 or 5 areas where, if this variance was granted, would conflict. Number one, and I state the citations in the written documentation. First of all, the comprehensive plan provides that it should carefully control the location of feedlots and other animal confinement areas in the county to minimize pollution and nuisance problems. In the present case, this is extremely close to the city of Houston. It's approximately 400 feet. The feedlot, yes, was there, but the city of Houston was there, I believe, even before this feedlot. And I'll go into how the city of Houston's have been developed here recently. Unfortunately, it's directly in conflict with the location of the feedlot. The second area where this variance application conflicts is that it conflicts with comprehensive plan to encourage and promote diversified economic development and to provide for continuing employment opportunities. The city, there is a corridor along the city of Houston that's in the county that, according to the comprehensive plan, is for fringe urban development for economic opportunities. And we have Loken Sawmill in there. Rosendahl is located right along that corridor. That conflicts with the encouragement to expand business opportunities right along that corridor. The other comprehensive plan section provides that encourage the location of residential subdivisions and major developments near existing cities where urban services can easily be provided. This is directly adjacent to the city of Houston, so it conflicts with that section alone. And of course, the comprehensive plan provides that it should protect and enhance air, water, and land resources in the county. I believe Aaron highlighted the issues that could be a problem with the expansion of this feedlot. I did attach Exhibit A, the firm map that Aaron, I believe, did include in the packet, and I put an X right where the feedlot is, and as you can tell, it's completely surrounded by the zone AE. And Aaron was saying that map is currently being changed. But as we're going right now, as far as the map what the DNR goes by and the flood insurance rate map, this is what they're going by, and it's pretty much an island there. And also, if you flip one page back to Exhibit B, you can see the black line. That's at the 680 feet. The flood line is right around that area, right around the 680. And as Aaron indicated, it does go through one of the buildings at this point. So it's very close to where the flood line is. And as you know, the city of Houston is protected by a levee. This feedlot is located inside of the levee, and that's a major concern for the city at this time. If there was a large rainfall event again, as we had a few years back, the city, through their maintenance department, must mechanically pump the water inside the levee to over the levee. And if it's flooded, which many basements and everything in the streets are flooded in the city of Houston, if it goes into the feedlot, of course, they're going to be pumping contaminated water, and the potential is spreading throughout the city. So that is a major concern. If another event happens, all the residents of the city of Houston will be affected. And on section 1, again, I say variances shall only be permitted when they are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and when the variances are consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes, the comprehensive plan does support agriculture. Houston County should, absolutely. However, there's many more provisions in the comprehensive plan that prevent this type of agriculture should be limited around corporate limits. The other reason why the variance should be denied, I have in section 2, is that it just will not meet the variance standards. Houston County's ordinances provide what has to be met to grant a variance. The first one, the standard you look at, is there a substantial variation in relation to the requirement? In this case, we're looking at 86% to 63%. That's pretty much cutting out all the setbacks. Variants are more properly granted when they're small variations, such as 5%. Here, it's pretty much gutting it, unfortunately. So it should be denied on this standard alone. Will the variance have a negative effect on governmental services? Unfortunately, there's potential in this case. If there's another flood event, the governmental services to protect the citizens of Houston could be negatively affected. Will the variance affect a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood, and will there be a substantial detriment to the neighboring property owners? The city of Houston believes that there definitely would be in this case. As you go through the city of Houston, you'll notice that the city built a nice ball field right along the road. Unfortunately, it is very close to the feedlot, and that's one of the reasons why they're seeking a variance. In addition, the city's main development area, Prairie Meadows, is directly adjacent to the feedlot. There was a brand new home built there in 2015. In fact, it's the closest lot to the feedlot. The city wants to continue to develop those lots. In your packet of information and in the very last, it's not an attachment, but it's in the folder. It shows where the city of Houston has extended city services to, and it has the green line there. That's actually where the line has extended out now. It's all the way pretty much to the property line now. So it's ready to go for more houses. So they're set to go there, and that's what they're promoting for more residents to reside in the city of Houston. Having a feedlot of 200 animal units directly nearby would cause substantial hardship in order to sell those lots. It would also cause problems with residents enjoying the ball field, and also the current resident that's immediately adjacent to it. There's a great potential of nuisances such as smell, flies, and noise. And according to the comprehensive plan, we must try to eliminate that. So there would definitely be a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. Some of the other ones that you must look at, how did the practical difficulty occur? Did the landowner create a need for the variance? In this case, he didn't do anything except buy the property. But he did know the variance requirements. He did know the setbacks for expansion. As Aaron indicated, he contacted the zoning office prior to him purchasing the property. So it appears that at least knew or should have known that you can't expand within this close proximity to the city of Houston. And the biggest one here, the last factor for practical difficulties, is will allowing the variance serve the interest of justice. The equities in this matter support denying the variance. Unfortunately, the city has spent substantial funds to develop Prairie Meadows, the ballpark, and other areas, and this will pretty much handcuff them, unfortunately. So they indicated that they will do everything they can to make sure that a 200 unit animal feedlot is not, number one, inside the dike, and number two, this close to their residents. And Aaron brought up another point as far as when were animals actually located in the property. The city of Houston at this time, they're not going to take any aggressive actions as of right now to state that there has been no animals there for many, many years. I believe there's comments at the site visit that it's been a lot longer since 2011 since animals were there. But at the same time, if a variance is granted, they indicate they must do everything they can. So at this, if the board does table it, as Aaron suggested, I request you take a look at the citations I have in there of why a variance should be denied. Also, your packet also has photographs for your review as well, color photographs of the property, and And you can see Aaron does a good job with his overlays of what it is. But of course, we had substantial rain here recently, so it does have rain located around it. With that, I have no further comments, but respectfully request that the board deny the application at this time. And we have Chris Peterson here as the city administrator for the city of Houston. I'd like to say a few comments.
As he said, my name's Chris Peterson. I'm the city administrator for the city of Houston. And I just want to say some good things about Houston and let you know how this could negatively impact what our plans are. For the last few years, the city council staff and community volunteers have worked harder than ever to make Houston great. Our chamber is going full steam. For the first time ever, we have a paid staff person and a new board for our chamber, really reaching out to the businesses and planning new events in the city of Houston. Our nature center is continuing to improve. We have the natural playground there, which brings visitors from far and wide. We have a new project for pond piers and a path around the pond at the nature center, which is a nice asset for the community. We have the new International Owl Center that is in its own building now, and they are doing great. And they have an Owl Fest every year and bring in a couple thousand people just for the one weekend. We have the community garden. We have a new archery range. We've also been doing a lot of efforts to clean up the city. We've successfully had many orders to fix hazardous buildings within the city of Houston, which has actually caused 2 people to completely start over with their house and a couple others to do significant improvements. We have a hometown pride group that concentrates on beautifying the city. So we've had a lot of people doing a lot of good things. As Jed mentioned, we have the ball fields. The ball field 1 went in around 2010. The second ball field just went in the last year or 2. And they have big plans to have league tournaments, and they get a lot of crowds there, which is located real close to this feedlot property. Also, the Prairie Meadows subdivision had a little bit of a slow start just because it was started in about 2005, and then the economy wasn't doing so well. The developer took a little bit of a back seat, didn't have the properties marketed, and we didn't see that improving or anything taking off. So the city took very conscious steps to work really hard to get that development up and going. We worked with the developer to have it donated back to the city. We have encouraged development. We had a couple houses built out there, and we have plans to extend the infrastructure even further and get the rest of that development built out, which is a total of about 34 lots, and there's 8 built so far, 8 homes built. So we feel in the last few years we've really gained a lot of steam with that development, and this feedlot would definitely damper our progress on that. So we're hoping the recent hard work of our community will pay off and attract new people to Houston. For that reason, we oppose this expansion, just because of the negative impact it would have on all the progress we have worked so hard to achieve.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this here at all?
John Beckman, Houston Township. I think we should be a farming county, a farming community. And we got a young man here with a family that's wanting to start out farming, raising cattle. And according to Mr. Locker, excuse me, he started in the right way, checked for variances and whatnot. And granted, he is close to the city limits, but it does appear that maybe the city encroached on the feedlot by building those ball fields, and it was registered by his records as straight through from 2000. Granted, there wasn't cattle there for 2 or 3 years, but as long as the registration was kept up, then feedlot should be active. So I think, I urge the board to take that all into consideration, and it's no disrespect to Mr. Hamel or Mr. Hoskins or the Loken Sawmill Land or anybody, but I mean, the farm was there as long as those buildings were there and the cattle were there. There was no issues. Is there any issues on record of complaints from noises or smells from?
That I'm aware of.
So I think that should all be taken into consideration. He's agreed on the manure, when he told you what he was gonna do with the manure. I think that should all be weighed in, and I urge you to support this. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on this?
Eric Johnson, Houston Township. I'm also on the town board. And we support this variance for Cody for his feedlot. I've known Cody all my life. I know his uncle. They're good farmers. They take care of their animals. They take care of the manure. They're good stewards of the land. And like John said, we are a farming community. From what I understand, there is already 5 feedlots that are within the half mile of Houston currently. Probably his included in that figure. From what I understand, throughout the county, Caledonia has 12, Maricopa's got 2. So this is not something new to have a feedlot close to town. And I can verify that there's been cattle on that property. I know Twyla, the previous owner, had beef cows there. She may not have had 50 head, but that doesn't matter. If she had 10 head, that counts. So I also understand the winds or westerly winds are 95% of the time. I don't feel that this will be a hindrance to the city as far as smell. Being that it's on the east end of town and the westerly winds, I don't think they might smell more from the feedlot that's the east of town. So other than that, I feel that the Board of Adjustment should grant this variance. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on this matter?
I'm Eileen Loken, owner of Loken Sawmill Inn, the motel that is in Houston Township. And we had Loken Auto where Chad Rosendahl had. We started that 19 years ago. So we have on this side of town, right now we have some lots that are for sale that are in the town, and we have our motel that's for sale. And I would really like the value to stay up there. I've made a very 19 years investment in several businesses in town, and I'm looking to sell them. And I would like, I have nothing against the feedlot or anything, but I'm just trying to protect my investment and keep up the value so I could sell, and that someone else could come in. And again, economic development. We've given a lot of taxes to the township, and hopefully the next business will also give money to the township. But again, I'm just really looking to, protect our investment in the value. And again, we have lots on one side and then the motel, and that's in Houston Township. So.
My name is John Loken. That was my wife just listened to. We got a hotel, live in the Houston County Township, and I would have for sure thought the township would have come and visited with us. But they took it upon themselves to take the stance that they have, and that's fine. I'm not opposed to Cody either. But there's got to be changes in, there's got to be a way to compromise to get Cody going, and reach his needs, and I would suspect that over the time that there'll be some changes in how we run our feedlots and such, and then Cody can grow. I appreciate the fact the young guy, we're young businessmen. There's no difference between me and a businessman and a young farmer. We all want to get started. We all want to meet our goals. But we also got to be aware of our neighbors. And anyway, I just want to express I'm really disappointed in my township for not coming and visiting with me. And there's only 2 of us there. We got time to sit across the street, but not come and visit. So thanks for listening. We're opposed to it.
Anybody else?
Bill Hoskins, I own the residence that's right next to the lot line at the site down here. A few years ago, a couple of us spent our money to help put a lift station in on that end of town, to provide sewer to the lots that we developed. Last year, I built a home on one of those lots. I have a considerable investment in that. And my bedroom window is 42 feet from the line fence of that feedlot. Now, Cody was kind enough to come and visit with me, and I explained to him that I appreciated that, and I appreciated the fact that he's a young, aggressive young fella that's trying to make his mark in the world. But I said I'm not in favor of that feedlot with that many animals. I told him, I said, 50 animals to me would be great plenty. Now, I've been around farms all my life, and I've worked on manure pumps and in manure pits, and I know what it smells like when you get silage, juice, and cow manure together. It's a hell of a sour smell. Now, you can talk about which way the wind blows and how much manure they're going to haul out of there and how efficient they're going to be at doing that. You can also, I'm not so sure about that. I trust Cody. But there's also another problem with noise. If you fellas are farmers, you know how cattle beller like hell for 3 days when you bring a whole load of new cattle into a facility that they're not familiar with. With my investment with my home and the infrastructure that we paid to have installed there quite a few years ago now, I guess I would like to see the board deny the request or the variance. Thank you.
Anybody else at this time? Okay. Well, Aaron, you gotta read the findings or how we wanna do this.
These the findings, we're gonna have to table this because of the DNR, or should we do it anyway?
Well,
Yeah, again, my recommendation is to table this to provide some additional time for the DNR to clarify the current floodplain rules and for the applicant to submit an application for an interim permit that will include much more detailed information about the land where this manure is proposed to be applied. It will zero in on a number that would be the maximum animal unit that you could have on site and still be compliant with discharge. I think that my recommendation to you would be not a permit that would exceed what the facility would be able to maintain in a compliant manner. We have a recommendation, a really rudimentary recommendation from the Soil and Water Board, but I think what we need is a precise animal unit number with a very detailed plan. For many of the reasons that have been aired here tonight, and maybe atop that list, the proximity of the floodplain. It is a potential for a pollution hazard. So that would be my recommendation.
So what did the feedlot officer say about this feedlot? What are their concerns, or what is their recommendation?
Well, that's my recommendation as the feedlot officer, I suppose. We have, like I expressed, the Soil and Water Board has been out there. They do 80% of the feedlot inspections for the county. Their recommendation right now, I guess it's not really a recommendation, they ran through a hypothetical situation whereby there would be 100 animal units on the site. But if I were to put my feedlot officer hat on and not the zoning administrator hat, it would be that we would like the applicant to apply for an interim permit that's going to provide far greater detail on the nuance of his operation. And that would be a way to set an animal unit number that can be done in compliance with the state regs. And if we were to table this, there would be time for him to do that. We could tease that number out, and again, there would be the opportunity for the board to perhaps grant a variance at the same number that we can determine compliant discharge from this site, should you want to. I guess I don't want to tell you whether there should be any increase or not. What in terms of the feedlot officer perspective, it would be what can the site handle while still being compliant. That doesn't mean that you would necessarily be granting a variance at that number, but I wouldn't think you would want to go above that number.
How about if we set that number at 150 head? Start your new deal out with.
Could you say that again?
I said, how about if we start that out at 150 head for the new permit for this variances and everything?
150 animal units.
150 animal units, I meant.
To evaluate it for 150?
Yep.
Yeah, we could, I guess, throughout that process, I think what we would do is we would gradually move upward to figure out what the ceiling would be. When I show you this picture here and say that this is a compliant arrangement, there would have to be some site work done in order to achieve that. This assumes that all the runoff slopes through these orange buffers. So if you were to simply stock it right now, I don't know if that necessarily would be the case. So there's a lot of variables that are at play. You know, if we had a covered facility there, the number would greatly increase in terms of discharge. That still isn't really taking into consideration many of the effects that have been aired here tonight due to the proximity of the city. It's strictly looking at discharge. But in terms of feedlots, Minnesota 70-20 rules, what we're concerned about at that point is manure and water. So it's not taken into account smell or flies or any of the things that people have talked about. It's talking about simply, are we discharging, is there manure discharge entering waters of the state?
It still has to be done within 30 days now, though? Or this
An
30-day
action on his
rule?
application?
Yeah,
It would have to happen within 60 days.
60 days.
Yes, and we would have the ability to extend that if we needed to, if we had the applicant's agreement to that.
What is the effect if we would turn this down? Does he then revert back to the 50 and he goes on as this did not happen?
Correct, yes. If without the variance, he's registered for 50.3 animal units.
Well, what do you think?
I think we should have a table.
I think that.
Could you explain that interim permit a little better? To me, interim says it's for a period of time.
Right. So interim permits are often issued when a producer is looking to build say a barn or something like that. The permit covers a maximum of 24 months, and it's designed to require the applicant to correct a pollution hazard within 24 months in those instances. It's also used in a situation like we have here where we don't have an existing pollution problem, but we have the potential for a pollution problem. And in this case, it would force the applicant to put in place best practice management practices, I suppose. He would be required to do a manure management plan. It would talk about frequency of application to fields. It would take into account nitrogen loads within those fields where he's applying, times of year when he's applying, and it would be voided if a pollution problem became present. So it's a way of, I guess it's an extra, I call it a security blanket. Without this, you still can't create a pollution problem, but this is a heightened monitoring of a facility. And it's both my opinion and Soil and Water's opinion that this is an appropriate side. And we have heard, many people talk about the good management practices of the applicant, so it's not a reflection of, a good or bad reputation of the applicant. It's a reflection of the site's proximity to a floodplain.
No, the interim permit, you could utilize the 50.3 animal units.
He doesn't need an interim permit to do the 50.3.
No, he doesn't, because he's already got that, right?
Right, he could put those on tomorrow. He's still required to follow all the feedlot rules, but there would be no additional permission necessary from Board of Adjustment or from the county to operate that level. If while operating at that level, the site became non-compliant, then the county would be asking for action from him. But barring that, he's registered for his 50.3. He doesn't need additional approval for that.
Mhm.
The interim permit would expire 2 years from the issue date, and then he would just revert to operating at whatever level he's operating at without a permit being necessary. I guess is another way to look at it. That's the interim nature of it.
Can I ask a question?
Can you, well, I guess
Come up front and you can ask it.
So, let me understand the interim permit. That would be good for 2 years and that would automatically go to a CUP?
No, it would never go to a CUP.
It's always gonna be an interim.
It would not always be an interim, no. If we issue the interim permit, and I'm just gonna say 100, let's use 100
Right.
animal units. We issue it 100 animal units. The interim permit will have conditions tied to it,
Right.
in much the same way that a conditional use permit will. It'll be things like record keeping for manure and limitations on animal units. But if we go that 2-year period and there's compliance with the terms of that permit, the permit just ceases to be, and he continues on with his animal units and a registration.
Okay,
The conditional use permit, from the county perspective, that kicks in at 300 animal units, so much bigger increase than he's asking for.
understand, okay. That's why he needs a manure management plan with an interim use situation like this.
With the 100.
Because usually it's 300 units for a manure management plan.
Correct, yeah, it's that or it's the interim use, so it's the potential for the pollution hazard here, and again, not a reflection of what we've heard about his management, but a reflection of the fact the floodplain touches the feedlot.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I would add also that if we were to go the route of the interim permit, there could be an opportunity for the county to work with the city to develop the types of safeguards that maybe were alluded to Mr. Logan talked about, there maybe is a way to accommodate some increase and still satisfy or not overly affect some of the concerns that were expressed tonight. And that might be an appropriate way to address that, where maybe the board suggests a number and we try to figure out what would be necessary to operate at that number in a way where we're not exposing ourselves to any more pollution risk than we would need to be.
I think, this is difficult because I think there's legitimate benefits on both sides. Intelligent people have differing views, and they're both very legitimate. But I think it's this board's responsibility to, I guess, work for the benefit of the greater number. I appreciate a person willing to step up, start a new business, put the time and the substantial time and money into it. But I just struggle with saying, yeah, we're gonna increase the runoff, especially inside that levee. That to me is a real issue. And I think we could get the interim, put him through a lot of paperwork and a lot of calculation. But I'm just one of the board, and maybe because it's beneficial to have a chance to consider this, to think about it, that we should table it. But I look at it too, and does it make sense to put you through all kinds of effort and time and effort? And like I said, that increasing that inside that levee, if I were part of that city, that would be a problem for me. And like I said, if it is ever used for what it was built for, that's going to be a problem, because you can't get that stuff out. If it's a day, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. If it's a week or two, that would be difficult.
But don't you think that the water is gonna be contaminated before it breaks the levee?
Pardon me?
All the water coming down to the levee is gonna be contaminated before it gets there.
Well, outside the levee, the water will be contaminated. Ideally, if the levee holds, the city will be dry.
I agree.
But this would be, this feedlot, but it has runoff. Where does it go?
But with this interim thing, he could get the runoff diverted and put
That's
up
what
walls.
that is right up there.
But that depends on going somewhere, and it's inside the levee. That depends on going somewhere outside the levee. Is that true?
The way that buffer strips are designed to work is that the runoff would be filtered by this vegetative area. So by the time you reached, in this case, this would be the end of treatment, you would have water that's contains an acceptable level of pollutants.
Okay. Well.
So it would, the pollutants, the nitrogen coming off there would be in this grass area right here. That's where it's.
And that would truly be acceptable, whatever you want to say.
Well, when I'm talking about the Mint Farm scoring runoff, all these a lot of variables that have been there that are not being considered there. So it's not. This site would rate the same way using that tool if the city is, a block away or if the city is 10 miles away. It does no bearing. It's not taking that into consideration. It's only taking into consideration how much manure is going to be in these lots, how much treatment area do you have before you get to your end of treatment.
Well, like I said, I think that inside the levee is, for me, that's an issue. and maybe we should, do you want to go with this interim? Are you willing to put in the time and effort to do that? I mean, I don't know, what are the chances of that, what are the chances of that working out for him after you put that in? I mean, there's no guarantee that's gonna work.
Well, it'll guarantee him to operate at so many cattle units.
Well, he still needs, for any increase, he needs the Board of Adjustment to act. And if the Board of Adjustment acted now and permitted him at 200, the county could still require him to apply for the interim, and that still could limit his animal numbers. And I think the best outcome here would be having consistency between those two things.
I agree.
So we don't want the interim permit permitting him, 200 and the Board of Adjustment saying no, 75. We
And
don't-
he still can work with 50.3, right?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that's
he has the
immaterial.
50.3.
Yep.
Put them on there
They're
tomorrow.
already.
Can I say a few more things again? Just 3 points.
I guess you could have come up front.
There's a lot of talk of Cody's farming practices, and I think even those of us that heard him the other day are convinced he'd probably do a good job. But to protect the city, we have to look at the future forevermore. If a variance is granted, that would carry through with the property. So what are the guarantees of future owners? So it's not just talking about this current landowner. And I would hope that the board would look out for the benefit for all in the county and not just the farmers. And the last point is, we're not questioning anything with the original 50. We do want to support farming. We know that that is the rural community, and that's what happens right outside of Houston, and that's okay. It's just the expansion to 200 that we're really opposing. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
I think we should table it.
Mhm.
I think we should table it.
Table.
Let them decide how many animal units we have.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna make a motion that we table this variance meeting until we get this stuff from the NRCS and our other
DNR.
information from probably the Army Corps or the
We're waiting for the DNR.
DNR.
Yeah, and then we're waiting for some application information from Cody, but we would be working to process that application with Soil and Water.
Mhm.
And like I said, tease out where
We'd have a little more information on runoff and a little more information on animal units that the area can support.
sure.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion to table it until we get more information and Cody has a chance to get this interim permit. And there's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's been tabled until we get this straightened out a little bit.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll
second.
second that.
Okay, there's been a motion, a second adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Been nice to